Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about one of my favorite topics from last year, the very dark, very different, and highly successful DC comic book movie, of course simply just called Joker. Joker made waves last year, culminating in October when the film finally released, smashing box office records and becoming one of the biggest sensations of 2019. And aside from Joker being a terrific film and a new take on what superhero and supervillain films can even be, but in addition to the movie aspect, Joker also made waves socially and became a bit of a media sensation too. This worked out in the best way possible for fans like us as well, since Joker wasn't getting the usual media attention many comic book movies and big franchises are getting these days. No, instead of being a typical overly diverse pro-SJW nightmare, Joker did quite the opposite. Its film and producers and message all bucked typical left-wing norms, and needless to say, this made the leftists in public extremely angry. Keep in mind, liberals are used to always getting their way and having every movie and media property kiss their ass as much as possible. And this norm has become so dominant, anyone who doesn't conform immediately gets quickly turned on. And projects that dare to step up and make jokes, commentaries, and salient points against the left, well, those products rarely see the light of day. And when they do, they hardly have the chance to succeed, not nearly as much or a fraction of what the Joker eventually accomplished. Now, we've talked about the when and why and what of how this Joker film and story went down extensively here on this channel over the last few months in a slew of other videos which I'll link to in a playlist below if you want to catch up more. But for now, today we're talking about how and why Joker is back in the news this week, so many months after its release. Basically, to put it shortly, now that it's award season and Hollywood is nominating what they believe are the best films, productions, and performances of the year, well, that's resulted in Joker getting a great number of nominations at the Academy Awards. More nominations than any other movie actually. So needless to say, this has gotten the social justice warriors a little ticked off. They've had it out for this movie since the beginning, ever since they heard it was going to be a dark and brooding and fairly violent picture and also not politically correct. Then when it was discovered the movie actually goofs on and sometimes attacks many liberals and SJWs and their ways of thought, well, that led to a doubling down of the attacks against the movie before. And now that the nominations are being announced and the Joker is leading the packs, leftists are now tripling down and getting triggered and attacking Joker once again. We're going to go over some articles and cases of this happening today and talk about why the SJWs are wrong and why Joker is still a great movie and it deserves all the praise it can get. Our first SJW influenced hit piece on this is called "Don't Forget Joker is Still a Problematic Film." That's pretty rich, and I think most people should and would know what's going on going into this movie. Not only is Joker world famous for being a very violent and out of his mind Batman villain, but also the trailer, poster, and press releases leading up to this film coming out made it pretty clear. Not to mention, the movie's also rated R, so we should know what's up going into this. If you put it all together, you should know what to expect. The Joker movie is messed up and it's about troubled people in a scary and dangerous place. But with that said, I certainly wouldn't call the movie problematic despite all that. Sure, it's about messed up problematic things like crime and crazy people, but that doesn't make the film an actual problem. Funny how there used to be a time when controversial issues were able to be addressed in media and art. Hell, it used to be encouraged even, but now, in current year, and if you even dare to talk about something that's not PC, you will get wild SJW detractors circling around you, like the one surely behind this article and what we're talking about today. With that said, and despite our initial differences, let's go ahead and see what else this article has to say, just for the shits and gigs of it. Joker, one of the most controversial films of 2019, is kicking off 2020 with a celebration, snagging 11 nominations for the Academy Awards, according to BBC News. But that doesn't discount the fact that Joker, a film full of blood, violence, and mature themes, was one of the most controversial films of 2019 that failed to fully address the mental health issues it raised or adequately defend itself against the potential violence it could have created. Yeah, right. Critics have been quick to praise Joker. Star Joaquin Phoenix has found success. He won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Actor Sunday night for his role after winning the same Best Actor award at Golden Globes. The film had an 88% audience score and a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. But there are two main problems with the film, both of which I highlighted in separate pieces back in October. Well, I got a feeling those so-called problems aren't going to be real issues at all. As far as I'm concerned, Joker addresses mental health issues in exactly the way it planned to and needed to, and there's nothing to even say it had to say more here, or handhold us through the topics better. The movie is just about a crazy person, raised by another crazy person, go figure, and that's pretty much the gist of it, so I don't see what the big issue even is here. here. This is the backstory for a supervillain, mind you. So, there's supposed to be a deranged killer with serious problems. And while they did give him proper motivations and some reasons to even sympathize with the guy, but doing this too much, like what seems to be suggested, would clearly result in ruining the film, or at least altering it greatly. We don't want to have all these issues overly explained after all, and we also want to hate and think this guy's a bad guy in the end. Then this section talks about how the movie could cause violence. Please, using that logic, any film with crazy people or killings could cause violence as well, and I'm just not buying that. Really, this article and others are coming at the Joker for other, more nefarious reasons, ones that they're not willing to mention, and that's because talking about how you don't like this movie because it roasts you and other PC leftists like you, well, that doesn't sound as good as saying it mishandles the way it addresses mental health, and saying it could cause violence is just fear-mongering here too, on top of that. And that's another approach that's been done since this movie was getting ready to release. In fact, so many SJWs cried and acted like bad, violent things were going to happen because of Joker, it was almost like they were asking for it to happen. Would have fit into their narratives perfectly too, but fortunately, nothing ended up happening. Just like how nothing happened with climate change or World War III, another scare earlier this year. These liars are just using classic scare tactics then, and anyone with any common sense can see right through their BS. The film made me feel uneasy. The tension riled me up, and that's fine. That's what happens when you make a really good movie. It takes over the viewers so they forget they're in a movie theater. But I left the theater feeling uneasy, uncomfortable, and well, dark, rather than concerned over the problem our country faces with how we deal with mentally ill Americans. Jesus, dude, get a grip. The movie doesn't have to preach about this stuff if it doesn't want to. And this section sums up the author's misguided butthurtedness pretty well. In the beginning, he is kind of right though. The movie does make you feel uneasy. It also riles viewers up and almost makes you forget you're in a theater. And this is all a good thing. That's been done by design. The only problem here is this writer just can't take it. And they want to focus on different issues and suggest that the movie should be promoting some way to help all these mentally ill people in the world or something. Ridiculous. Movies aren't here for that. And I would just say, hey dude, maybe this movie's not for you. SJWs love saying that to us all the time. But for Joker and this writer, it is a true case. This is a dark, twisted, comic book related fantasy with very little humor or levity to it. So it being dark and sad is to be expected. And believe me, I understand this not being everyone's cup of tea. I personally liked it, but it's definitely not a movie I would just watch anytime, whenever. In fact, I actually waited a few weeks to watch Joker because I happened to be out of town when it came out. And at that time, my wife and I didn't want to watch something sad during our trip, so we just waited. But then, later, when I did watch the movie, I didn't judge it on what I liked or wanted it to be, like what this writer's doing. Instead, I watched and tried to accept and enjoy what the creators were trying to make, and that's really the only way to go. And this difference in style and taste isn't a problem at all either, let alone is it a point where you should say the film's makers were wrong and should have done something different. If anything, they made something that's just not what you like, but many more and others clearly do. That's why it's so popular and successful. Next, we got another anti-Joker article coming from Slate called Joker's Oscar Nominations Are a Joke. If you say so, buddy. Sounds to me like you're just as butthurt as the last piece though. And since this subtitle also says, Stop the Madness, this movie is dumb as hell, I get the feeling the arguments here are going to be against this movie's quality directly. At least we're moving on from the BS mental health and violence claims from before, but attacking the Joker's quality will be tough too. It's a well-made, well-shot, and well-acted work of art that surely isn't perfect, but at the same time, this is worlds better than what usually gets lauded by these silly award shows. Hollywood typically honors overly dramatic tearjerkers and other so-called Oscar bait. You know, movies about war, tragedies, death, suffering, cancer, and other serious shit. And while Joker can be seen as reflecting that kind of seriousness too, it's still done in a more interesting way, in a more creative comic book universe based on the Batman series, of course. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Let's go ahead and read on and see what this writer has to say now. Look, it was fine when people like Joker. It made $1 billion, that's understandable. It's a comic book movie with style. It won the Golden Lion at Venice. I mean, Hirokazu Kurata was not thrilled, I'm sure. But it's great that a film festival thought outside the box. Joaquin Phoenix got a bunch of Best Actor attention in critics' polls and lesser awards. No problem. It's a showy performance. The guy lost so much weight, throw him a bone. Or maybe throw him a sandwich. As awards season went on though, it became more and more clear that the film might be a real player. Not just for Best Actor. Fine, there's a long and proud tradition of nominations for overcooked performances in bad movies, but for real awards. Actual serious awards-giving bodies kept nominating the thing. The BAFTAs, the Producers Guild, my own damn union? Well, I can already tell this guy is giving far too much credit to these Hollywood award shows. Or any awards show for that matter. This whole process is an exercise in vanity and a way for millionaires to award other millionaires multimillionaires who can then use the clout they gain from these awards to become millionaires all over again. It's a huge self-indulgent modern-day public circle jerk. So with that said, I don't hold the same reverence for these things as this writer does. Clearly, sure, I think about who should win sometimes, or even I can debate and say this person should be nominated or winning, but at the same time, if it's someone else or another thing, a different kind than my preference, that can be fine too. Also, let's not act like The Joker is this shitty, homemade, undeserving crap film. It's a good, well done picture and had a lot of time and care put into it, clearly. So just because it happens to be comic book related doesn't mean it's shit, and it certainly doesn't mean it's not worthy of getting awards, like what's being directly stated. It's okay that Todd Phillips wanted to make a Batman movie that looked like Taxi Driver. That's a fun thing to do in the context of a comic book story. The result was exactly as entertaining and dumb as you might expect. What the result was not was one of the 11 or 21 or 51 best pictures of the year. To reward it as such is, well, not smart. Kinda like this writer. From its dumb yellow title card to its anti-hero's dumb delusions of grandeur to its dumb absolute belief in its own transgressiveness. I think that's a made-up word. Joker is just as stupid as can be. It is a movie designed to seem impressive to anyone without much of an understanding of film history, who's maybe seen clips from Taxi Driver online. It's a movie designed for people who must rush to get to Twitter to see if everyone catches the reference. Okay, folks, I think we found ourselves one of the most pretentious, biggest, whiny haters here of all time. Clearly, this writer thinks they're some kind of Hollywood insider who knows better than everyone else. And sure, I can also admit Joker wasn't the greatest movie of all time. There's certainly been better similar movies made, but also, when we're talking about 2019, Joker can easily be seen as one of the best of the year. Surely it was one of the most liked and most talked about projects, no denying that. And while I'm not here to totally kiss the ass of this movie and its creators 100%, I will happily defend it in the face of these elitists and these people pushing for more Oscar bait type films to get awards over and over again. Nothing wrong with the Oscars and Globes coming around and giving some award love to some mainstream flicks like Joker. But also, let's not forget too, these awards hardly matter as much as Hollywood leads on anyway. Finally, to wrap up this SJW cringe fest, we have some of the worst and most notorious leftists at BuzzFeed News who are hating on Joker for getting awards and nominations too. This time, Joker winning is bad because the movie is too white and too male, apparently. Not a surprising claim from these losers, since according to left-wingers, not being white is a virtue now, and being white is a hindrance, and things that star females are inherently better for some strange reason because I guess SJWs just hate white men. And while I understand they have their own justifications for all this, all these terrible biases, I really just see through their charade. In reality, pro-diversity is just anti-white in disguise, and pro-female feminism is just SJW's way of hating on dudes. And this is all happening now with the Joker context because straight white males made the film, and they started it and are enjoying this success right now. But they really should be enjoying it because its director Todd Phillips and its star Joaquin Phoenix, they created one of the biggest and most groundbreaking films of our generation. And this is the real reason SJWs hate this movie, and it's why they hate straight white males like us. They hate us because they ain't us, and they wish their SJW-filled women and minority-led drivel was half as good or maybe just 10% as successful as our pictures. What do you guys think? Should Joker have gotten all these Oscar nominations? Will it win Best Picture this year, or maybe Best Actor? And why do you really think the SJWs are so triggered by this? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.